thank you for those comments. However, I think it still does beg the question, the central question, why the legislation had to be rushed through at such speed. And on reflecting on it over the days since our last debate here in the Shannon and watching the Dáil debates over this week, it's been increasingly, it's really increasingly come home to me that if the Commission, as indeed they did, came to you on the basis of legal advice they had, which we haven't seen, saying that they needed this legislation to be put in place, I think a response might well have been, I can't get this legislation passed with due parliamentary process by 30th October. You will have to seek an extension. So, and I don't see why that couldn't have been done. A few short weeks of an extension would have made the difference in terms of parliamentary process, and I think would have served to smooth the passage of what you say is necessary technical legislation, but which has in fact really, for so many people, stirred up such distress and such painful memories, such painful stories and experiences. So I think, and I think you've been very clear, I think, and very open about having underestimated the extent to which that would be the case from this bill, and I think that was a very fair comment. But I think, given that this was foreseeable, when we look back at the debates, the anguish that emerged in the debates in this House and in the other House on previous and related legislation, I think it was foreseeable that this effect would be had, particularly when this bill will do nothing to improve access to records or information for survivors. So that's the crucial point. And when, in fact, it will simply facilitate the ceiling and the 30-year rule and so on, which we all know was in the 2004 Act. But the 2004 Act is not set in stone and could have been amended too. And indeed, the information and tracing legislation could have been brought forward. And as I said, I did really try to ensure it would have been brought forward under your predecessor, Minister Catherine Zappone. So I think for all of those reasons, it's unfortunate, to say the least, that the bill has been rushed in this way and that an extension wasn't simply sought and granted to enable a better parliamentary process to go on. I should say that I had a long conversation about this with somebody I know you know very well, my former Labour colleague, former Taoiseach Joan Burton, this morning about it. And Joan has, as you know, been hugely active on this and has really sought to ensure that adopted persons in particular, but also persons who are in mother and baby homes, persons whose family members were in mother and baby homes, that they would have access to information, and that for them privacy rights would not be used to trump the rights to access their own personal data. And I think having spoken with Joan, having spoken with people over the years, survivors and those who support survivors, women like Christine Buckley, the late and very great Christine Buckley, women like Carmel MacDonald-Byrne and others, those who work in the Barnardo's Tracing Service and the Ashling Centre and so on, for everyone involved in this, there's been a sense for many years now that the state has blocked access to information, that we haven't been able to adopt for various reasons to do with sort of constitutional legal arguments, which I think should be tested more strongly. The various arguments, we haven't somehow been able to bring in the sort of gold standard legislation we've seen in other jurisdictions where adopted people do have rights to access their own information. And it is just a very clear right. And I think that's unfortunate. So you've got a situation where so many survivors and family members have been blocked from getting information for many, many years, and where then this bill comes into this context and is seen as simply contributing to that overall culture of secrecy and blockage of information. So I think that's a really important point. I think finally, Minister, if I may say, I mean, we've been constructive all through on the debate on this, and I did say at the start of second stage that the work of the Commission is hugely important. I have immense respect for the 3 members of the Commission. They're incredibly eminent, and I think we all do await eagerly the publication of the 4,000-page report. And we know it will be groundbreaking. And I quoted some of the interim reports that the Commission has already produced. They're really contributed to our field of knowledge, our store of knowledge on this. So it is hugely important. But I would ask you that when the report is published, that you would publish it without delay, given that you're now saying there is such a rush in getting this through, and that we would be able to debate it in the Dáil and in the Shannon, and crucially that support will be given to those organisations providing support themselves to survivors and to survivors' families. And there is, that need is so clearly evident in the sort of emails and communications and talks that we've all had and conversations that we've all had with so many survivors and survivors' families. So I just want to say that, Minister, by way of saying, we do appreciate, I think all of us on the opposition benches, the fact that in the Shannon, if not in the Dáil, you did take some amendments on board, that the bill has been improved as a result, but we still have fundamental issues with the tenor of the bill and with the fact that it will not provide persons with access to their own data. And that is really the fundamental point that remains a point of contention and a point of opposition to the legislation. Gurmagad.